In 1991, Shining Time Station, the show that brought Thomas the Tank Engine to the United States, was receiving critical acclaim, and a second season had been greenlit for release that fall. But there was a problem. Ringo Starr, who played Mr. Conductor, had decided to leave the show to focus on his music again. The voice and presence of the tiny storyteller was gone, and producer Britt Allcroft began to panic. Then her collaborator, Rick Sigelko, asked Britt to listen to a recording, never telling her who it was. The first word I heard, stuff, won me over. Although the words were aimed for adults, I heard a universal voice. I heard a sound that, for children, could be intimate, lyrical, sometimes spooky, soothing, and, most important, kind. She had no idea it was one of the many monologues by George Carlin.
Have you noticed that their stuff is shit and your shit is stuff?
They approached George about their idea, saying he looked the part. Salt and pepper beard, animated kind of character, with a great sense of fun in his eyes. To George, Shining Time Station was presented as an acting opportunity.
I thought, well, I'll show another side of myself. I'll show a side that no one's expecting. And Mr. Conductor was complete departure from anything anyone would have expected from me, judging me by my persona on stage.
He liked the idea of being a magical character who appears and disappears with gold dust and leaves a bit of wisdom behind. He was also very impressed with the quality of the show.
The morals of these stories were never jammed down the kid's throat. They weren't blatant. They weren't in capital letters. They were gently massaged into the framework of the show.
For George Carlin, the nice thing about being Mr. Conductor was that he didn't need to deal with actors. Being only 18 inches tall, all his scenes were green screen, and it was pleasant not having to listen to everybody's story of the day. However, as he sat down for the first day of recording narration in the sound booth, George was finding it hard to perform by himself, without having an audience to tell the stories to. Britt noticed this, and asked George if he had owned a teddy bear growing up. He did, so she sent for one to be put in the sound booth, where it became his companion at every recording session. The news of George Carlin becoming the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine was a surprise to many, and he was constantly being interviewed. The comedian, known for his 7 dirty words, was now on PBS educating preschoolers.
That a great number of adults are captivated by this show. Besides the doings in this little railway station, there are Thomas the Tank Engine stories, animated live-action stories of little railway trains that kids just fall in love with. So this is a quality and very interesting project that gives me a chance to exercise, as I say, another part of me, and that's the exciting thing for me.
He reassured journalists that Mr. Conductor would be coming from him, through his filter, with the liberty to adjust his lines for his own delivery. It even gave him some new material to work with.
I am the anti-Pete Best. Ringo Starr replaced Pete Best, who never got famous as the Beatles drummer. And I replaced Ringo Starr, who never really got famous as Mr. Conductor. I'm the anti-Pete Best. Physics students, pay attention to that.
George Carlin did 45 episodes for Shining Time Station, followed by 1-hour specials, and later a spin-off series, Mr. Conductor's Thomas Tales, which concluded in 1996. There was talk about a feature film, which did not happen during George's time, but he remembered the fascinating discussions with Britt about what the movie ought to be, and how to keep the core of Shining Time Station intact. Once, Britt asked George why Mr. Conductor was the most fascinating of Shining Time Station's characters to children.
I said to Britt, he's got 2 things combined. He's small like a child, he's childlike like a child, but he's fully developed like an adult, and he's wise like an adult. These things are joined, so there's a unity in him that is complete. I think he's fascinating to children because he's got the things children need from adults.
It was one of the reasons George played Mr. Conductor without feeling self-conscious and needing to use one of his voices. The character was natural to him. When his time as Mr. Conductor was coming to an end, George and his wife visited Britt for dinner. They had brought her a present, a teddy bear, christened Teddy Carlin, which sat on Britt's piano for many years. In his last message to Britt, George told her that he was very proud to have been Thomas's storyteller, and that Shining Time Station had given him some of the happiest times in his life. Still, she experienced his humor, when he once sent her a t-shirt with the slogan, "Brit Happens." Britt believes Shining Time Station made George realize that he had a special, previously unrealized bond with children. When George took over the role as Mr. Conductor, he said, "D.D. Conn told me to be ready to get mauled by 2-year-olds. I think I can handle that." Thomas the Tank Engine had won him a new generation of admirers, who knew nothing about George Carlin, except he was a little man in a little blue suit.
When I ran into one of these kids at the airport and the parents would say, that's him, go over and say hello," the child was always completely fucking traumatized. I was out of uniform and way too big. I had to say gently, "I'm not on the island of Sodor. I'm not working today, but I am Mr. Conductor.